Hey, what's up, guys? Wanted to talk really quickly about Terence Crawford, Israel Madrimov, the fight that happened in Los Angeles a couple weeks back. Apparently, it was a big flop commercially. They reported it as being a sellout in terms of tickets sold. It was not. I have it on good authority. I knew a bunch of people there, literally dozens of people who were there, media and fans alike, and fighters, trainers, and I've talked to all of them, and they all said the same thing. It wasn't a sellout. Also, the pay-per-view apparently flopped. It did around 100,000 buys according to reports. So I'm going to just share my screen right here. Jed I. Goodman, who I believe is a wrestling insider, he was the one who first tweeted about this, that it should do, he thinks, around 100,000 pay-per-view buys. Now, look, I want to preface before I go any further, this isn't confirmed, right? This isn't being reported from the actual people who put on the event, the actual promotion, which is what used to happen back in the day. Now, every pay-per-view number that you see is speculation. And when stuff like this comes out, depending on people's ideological viewpoints and their what tribe they're a part of or whatever, who they're loyal to, they may accept the pay-per-view numbers, they may not. I just want to keep the same energy because I've reported pay-per-view numbers, rumors of pay-per-view numbers in recent times with other fighters, with numbers that like Rick Glazier puts out, other people put out. There's several different people that put out these numbers, including this Jed Goodman. And I just want to keep the same energy. Let's just assume, let's take him at his word and assume that these are correct numbers, okay? And Terence Crawford has never really broken through on pay-per-view. His fight with Errol Spence, which was reported at doing over 600,000, upwards of 700,000 buys. And again, that's complete conjecture. None of that's been confirmed at all. There are other reports that said it did less than that. Depending on who you believe, who knows? But assuming it did 700,000 buys, a fight like that, which was built up for more than half a decade, with two undefeated Americans for undisputed welterweight championship, you would think that'd do well north of 1 million buys, right? So the question is, why doesn't Terence Crawford sell? And to be clear, he does sell tickets in his hometown of Omaha, Nebraska. He has sold out shows there. So he does sell tickets there. But outside of his hometown, why doesn't Terence Crawford sell, whether it be tickets, whether it be pay-per-view? What's going on here? And so I see a lot of people commenting about this and speculating, and some people are, citing political things, social things as the reason. Some people are blaming it on Top Rank. Some people are blaming it on PBC. I see all sorts of things. Guys, the biggest reason that Terence Crawford doesn't sell is Terence Crawford. Okay. And let's backtrack real quick. Top Rank. Top Rank signed Crawford in the early 2010s. Crawford went pro in 2008. And the first, I don't know, dozen or so fights of his career, I can't remember the exact number. I'm just going off the top of my head. But I know he went pro in 2008. And the first several fights in his pro career, he wasn't really signed with anybody. I don't know if he was exclusive with a promotion or not, but he was kind of bouncing all over on all these club shows. And when I say club shows, I mean it. I mean, he was fighting in ballrooms, in hotel ballrooms and things like that. He literally was fighting on the types of cards that I fought on. Seriously. That's where he got his start. Okay. Nobody signed him, including Al Heyman and PBC, right? And the so-called hero of American boxing. He didn't sign him. Nobody did. Top Rank gave him a chance. And Top Rank in the early 2010s started putting Crawford on some of their smaller cards. And he was fighting, 4-rounders, 6-rounders. They took their time with him, but they started to develop him. And they got him a fight against Brentis Prescott, who was an experienced fighter. He had an upset win over Amir Khan at one point, I think at lightweight, I do believe. And that's where Crawford was at the time. And they started kind of grooming Crawford for a lightweight championship fight. And lo and behold, by 2014, Terence Crawford was the consensus fighter of the year. So Top Rank took somebody that was completely ignored by the entire industry, all the other American promotions, the Golden Boys, the PBCs, you know, all the DeBellas, all those guys. And they took this fighter from relative obscurity, had around 60 or 70 amateur fights, I think, never really, you know, fought in international competition as far as I know. It was all domestic level, and took that fighter and basically made him the best fighter in the world, or among the top fighters in the world. It was Top Rank that really, really molded Crawford into what he became. And they got him a massive exposure on ESPN and really did well for him. So Crawford ends up winning a lightweight title. Then he goes undisputed at 140. Then he moves up to 47 and immediately grabs another belt. And then he was kind of froze out. So now we get into the PBC thing, right? And for the better part of what, half a decade or so, they froze him out. They even went as so far as to, like, the graphics on like the Showtime and Fox PBC shows would not show Terence Crawford or mention his name or even mention the WBO at all, because that's the organization Crawford had a title with at 147. They went that far. That's how badly they shut him out. And then when Crawford finally got the Errol Spence fight, when he left Arum and went free agent and signed the deal with PBC, the 2-fight deal, it was you know, the Crawford, the Spence fight, and then a rematch. There was a rematch clause. Even then, after he beat Spence, has the performance of his career in the biggest commercial fight of his career, he kind of got froze out again by PBC, because for a while it's, you know, are they going to enact the rematch clause? Spence says yes, they want to. So Crawford's kind of sitting on ice, waiting for Spence to be ready, waiting for PBC to be able to put up the money and do the fight where everybody gets paid what they want and it makes sense. All of that takes time. They pretty much would have to wait till the next year because their budget was tapped for 2023. So Crawford was kind of sitting around on ice. All that just for Spence to say, yeah, sorry, I got to get eye surgery, can't do it. So he basically was sitting on his butt, ends up doing this fight with Turkey Al Sheikh, Matchroom. There was a bunch of promoters on this card. I think Golden Boy was involved, in Los Angeles, where he had never fought before, I should mention. Crawford had never fought in LA prior to this. And so decent fight between the two of them, very competitive, but it wasn't necessarily, you know, must-see TV, right? But Crawford wins, and now it's being reported that it was a major flop. So that is how we got here, okay? Let me share my screen. I want to just bring up Crawford's resume real quick before we go any further. Let's bring it up. Boom. Okay, here we go. So here's the box rack. Okay, and yeah, 2008 is where Crawford went pro. Let me see. Can you guys see this? Yes. Okay. And you see the first, I don't know, was a dozen or so fights. Look at the ball, guys. He's fighting in a ballroom here in York. York, what? He's fighting in Iowa City. York is York, South Carolina, I think. Oh, York, Pennsylvania. Okay, there's a few states that have a York. So he's fighting in York, Pennsylvania, Iowa City, Glen Burnie. I have no idea where the hell Glen Burnie is. Glen Burnie, Maryland. Okay. So those are the types of places he's fighting in. Okay. And you see, like, on BoxRec, it's not even 1 star. His opponents were not even 1 star. Again, he was fighting guys that I fought, like, that level, on the types of shows that I have fought on. In fact, I have fought on amateur shows that were on headline them with thousands of people that were way bigger than this. Okay. So just to put things in perspective of where he started. And then in the early 2010s here, this is where you see, like, look at the difference in venues, right? It's Boardwalk Hall, Mandalay Bay, Hard Rock Hotel and Casino in Vegas, right? So that's when he starts working with Top Rank. And now he's fighting 1-star opponents. He's not fighting top guys. But then there's the Bradis Prescott fight in 2013. And from there to 2014, he becomes fighter of the year in just a year after that. And then in 2017, he beats Julius Ndongo to go undisputed at 140 and was the ESPN fighter of the year. Now that's a little in-house, you know, because Top Rank, ESPN. Okay. But still, he was very, very popular. But I'm just looking at the locations of where he fought. Okay. The Ricky Burns fight was in Glasgow. And then he had several fights in his hometown in Omaha. He has Texas. He did fight in New York against Hank Lundy, but he fought again in New York against Felix Diaz, but no big name opponents in New York. Fought in Vegas once against Jeff Horn. Amir Khan in New York. That pay-per-view did rumored around 150,000 buys. When Canelo Alvarez fought Amir Khan, it dwarfed those numbers, right? So he did fight in New York multiple times, and then a few fights in Vegas, including the fight with Sean Porter and Errol Spence, of course. But this was his first fight in LA. So he's fought in New York 3 or 4 times, Vegas 3 or 4 times. This was his first fight in LA. Why do I bring the market thing up? Because to go back to what I said before, the biggest reason Terence Crawford doesn't sell, it's Terence Crawford. It's not Top Rank's fault. It's not even PBC's fault. It's Terence Crawford. If he came from Los Angeles, if he came from New York, a big market like that, a global market, perhaps that would bring a little more cachet and it translate more in the marketplace, and he'd sell more pay-per-views because he'd be from a big market like that. But he's not. And he didn't relocate to Southern California like most of the fighters are right now to build themselves up. He stayed in Omaha, did his thing there, and props to him for that. But what do I mean by Terence Crawford's the reason Terence Crawford doesn't sell? Guys, there are 2 types of human beings. And this is the point that I wanted to get to. I just had to preface for about 10 minutes. So thank you for sticking with me. There are 2 types of human beings in this world. There is the guy that walks into a room and immediately commands attention. Not that he's trying to get attention. People are just drawn to him. He has, call it charisma, call it stage presence, whatever you want to call it. Mojo. He walks into a room and people notice him. And then there are people that walk into a room and kind of just blend in. There are way more of those people on earth than the former. Okay. There are way more people that just walk into a room and kind of blend in than there are people that walk into a room. It's like, oh, hey, John's here. Oh, shit. It's about to get crazy. Right. Okay. Gervonta Davis walks into a room. Now he's like 5'1". He's this tiny little man, but he's got charisma. He's got stage presence. You notice him when he walks into a room. Floyd Mayweather walks into a room. You notice him. Manny Pacquiao walks into a room. You notice him. Tyson Fury walks into a room. You notice him. Okay. Terence Crawford walks into a room. He kind of just blends in with the crowd. That's not a bad thing. In a lot of ways, it's a really, really good thing. But in terms of mass marketing, not necessarily a good thing. Okay. And so I can cite so many examples, guys, of people who try to do podcasts and YouTube videos and stuff, and they're complete flops. Really, really good members of the media who have written books and won awards and are really know their stuff. And they try to do podcasts and nobody wants to listen because they just don't have stage presence. They don't draw people in when they speak, right? People that have that charisma, that stage presence, they do better in mass media. They do better on television and movies and film, TV shows, all of it. They do better. They're better musicians in terms of selling, right? There are a lot of great underground musicians, great underground artists, but they never break through into the mainstream because they're just lacking that charisma. That's Terence Crawford. Terence Crawford's greatest asset is that he's a really good fighter. That's his greatest asset. There are a lot of people out there, a lot of fighters who their best asset is their personality, or maybe it's their demographics, it's their look, it's the market they come from, right? There are a lot of different things that make fighters economically viable. Terence Crawford's greatest asset is that he's a really good fighter. So the best thing Terence Crawford can do to market himself to the mainstream public is fight often. He hasn't done that. He needs to fight often, and he needs to fight in big markets. He's fought in big markets here or there, but he hasn't fought often enough. Crawford is one of those guys that should fight 4 times a year. right? If this were the 80s or the 90s, a guy like Crawford would fight twice a year in Omaha against a non-ranked opponent for $500,000, and he'd sell out a venue there. He'd sell 10,000 tickets or whatever, and the tickets will be priced very, very cheap to where you're covering cost, and you could pay Crawford half a mil, pay the opponent, blah blah blah, and it'd be okay. It'd be fairly profitable show, but it'd be more of a stay busy type of thing. And you do that fight, one of those like in the dead of winter, and one of those in the dog days of summer, and then you'd have a spring fight and a fall fight. Spring and fall are kind of the busier seasons in boxing, right? Traditionally, anyway. So you got those two fights against non-ranked guys. You're making like half a mil. Then you do one fight against a top 15, maybe top 10 ranked contender. And maybe for that one, you're getting a mil, maybe 2 mil. You're getting low seven figures. And for that fight, you're going to a bigger market. You're maybe fighting a guy in his hometown. You're stamping your passport and going over to the UK or something like that. And then there's that one big fight a year against a really highly rated elite level opponent. And for that, you're selling out and going to Vegas, or you're going to Los Angeles, you're going to New York. And Los Angeles makes a hell of a lot more sense in today's boxing market than New York does. I've talked about that. My New York guys always get pissed off, but it's the truth. And the fact that Crawford had only fought, this was his first fight in Los Angeles a couple weeks ago, that says a lot. So you go have that super fight once a year in Vegas, LA, wherever it is. It could be London at the O2, right? That could be your super fight. But that's high seven figures, perhaps low eight figures, depending on the opponent and the situation. If Crawford did that, he'd sell more. He'd break through more to the mainstream, because his greatest asset, he's never going to be good on the mic. He's never going to be good in an interview. He's never going to be good at pressers and the fight week hype, the fight, all the press stuff. He's just not going to be good at that. He's really good when he fights. So just get him out there. And I should also mention, all those fights, 3 of the 4 should be on regular TV where people can see it. The big fight in Vegas or whatever, okay, put that on pay-per-view, fine. But if you fight 3 other times that year and people can see you fight, and all 3 of those fights, you're calling out the guy that you want, the big name. Hey, I want to fight this dude. Then you get in the ring again. Hey, I want to fight this dude. You keep calling them out. Boom, boom, 2, 3 times. It builds it up. You do the big fight at the end of the year, like in the fall or something. That's how it should work. That would be the formula with a guy like Terence Crawford, because his personality ain't going to sell fights, right? You look at other guys, they have fought much less opposition. Gervonta Davis hasn't fought anywhere near the opposition of Terence Crawford. Nowhere near, not even the same stratosphere of accomplishments, but he sells more pay-per-views. Not a whole lot more. It's not like he's selling 1 million buys, but he does sell several 100,000 more at times. Definitely sells more tickets in different markets and stuff, because he breaks through in a different way. He has a very, a niche audience, but they're very, very passionate about him, and they travel, they go see Tank fight in different parts of the country, right? Crawford outside of Omaha, it's hit or miss, right? And they were fighting in LA. And, one last point on this with the whole Los Angeles thing, you guys know I lived out there for 10 years. I've lived north, south, east, west, right in the middle of America, everywhere. And again, I'm going to piss off my New York guys. There is no city in America, no big city in America that has more to do than Los Angeles, 365 days a year. Yes, I'm including New York in that. And it's honestly not even close. It's not even close, the things you could do in New York compared to LA. I know my New York guys are like, oh, my, you guys, because I know New York's the center of the universe. My mom's from New York. I've been to New York a lot. I've worked there. I've hung out there. I got family there. I'm telling you, there's more to do in LA. There are 6 months out of the year in New York, there's nothing to do but go to a bar and drink and eat. It's cold as shit outside. The weather sucks. It's dirty. It's dirty ass snow everywhere. In LA, I'm telling you, I remember on Christmas Day setting my feet in the Pacific Ocean wearing shorts in Santa Monica on the beach. And then a couple days later, me and my now wife went up to like Mammoth I don't know, hour and a half away or something like that, maybe a couple hours away. And we're in the snow. We're sitting in a hot tub in the snow, sipping a drink with snow falling on us. Amazing. Anyway, that's LA. Why do I mention this? Okay. For all the problems Los Angeles has, and there are plenty because it's run by imbeciles, there's a lot to do. Americans in general, we are spoiled with entertainment options. We have more so than any other country in the world, and there's no close second. I know I'm going to piss off a lot of people with that one. It's just the truth. We have so many more entertainment options, food options, you name it. We have an abundance of choice in this country. And in a market like Los Angeles in the dead of summer, when you've got Dodgers baseball, the Dodgers are an institution. They are a top 5 sports brand, at least top 10. I would argue top 5 here in the United States. The only baseball teams that is more popular is the Yankees and maybe the Red Sox. But I don't know. I think the Dodgers might be more popular than the Red Sox, honestly. They're second only to the New York Yankees. So like they're a major brand, and you got Dodgers baseball right down the street from where that BMO Stadium is. By the way, BMO Stadium hadn't had a fight in several years, hadn't had a fight card. I want to say it was like since 2019. So that wasn't known as a venue you go to see boxing. With the diehard fans, they grossly overpriced tickets. So they did so many things wrong. And then on top of all of it, Crawford hadn't fought for over a year, and he's fighting Israel Madrimov, who is a really good fighter. Let's face it, he's not a name. Now, Canelo Alvarez, Anthony Joshua, those kinds of guys could fight. Naoya Inoue could fight a guy like Israel Madrimov, and it will do substantial numbers, at least in their home country. Gervonta Davis could fight a guy like Madrimov, and that'd be a huge step up in opposition, actually, for him. But I digress. He would sell tickets. The pay-per-view wouldn't do very well, but he'd sell tickets, right? It would be a real sellout. Crawford just doesn't have that presence about him. So anyway, the reason why Terence Crawford doesn't sell is Terence Crawford. It's not the industry's fault. It's not some metaphysical, societal issue, that's affecting him. The man's bringing him down. Like it's none of that crap. It's him. He just ain't got the personality. He's a dude. He's just a regular dude. He walks into a room and kind of blends into the background. And again, that's not a bad thing. But when you're trying to market yourself to casual fans who don't know who you are, personality helps. If you don't have personality, then at least showcase your skills. And if you're doing that once a year and it's on pay-per-view on a streaming platform that most Americans don't even have, yeah, that's going to struggle, dude. So that's where it is, guys. And listen, I don't see Terence Crawford changing that. Who is there at 154 that's going to do even the Errol Spence numbers? Crawford's never going to have a million pay-per-view fight. If he fought Canelo, there would be a chance. If he fought Canelo, that might actually break through and do north of 1 million pay-per-view buys. Other than that, ain't going to happen. I don't even think he'll do near 500,000 pay-per-view buys ever again. Okay. And that's if the Spence fight even really did that number. But I don't think he's going anywhere near that number for the rest of his career. He burned such a bridge with Top Rank in the way that he treated them after they parted ways. And look, Top Rank, Bob Arum said and did some things that I thought were in poor taste and everything, but they did such a good job. They made him who he is. Burning that bridge was so bad because it's not only do you burn that bridge with Top Rank, but ESPN, a major platform. So that was bad news. And then other promoters see that and they're like, woo, I'm going to be cautious with this dude. So that was a bad move. And then kind of signing the deal with the devil with PBC and being held up with that rematch clause, that wasn't a very good move. And now he's kind of a free agent. We saw how this last fight just went. I don't know. If he can go for undisputed at 154 and end up fighting Tim Tszyu, and he fights Tim Tszyu in Australia, okay, now we're talking. That might be different. That might change things. A lot of stuff has to take place before that can happen. All right, guys. So that's how I see this. We'll talk more about it, I'm sure. What am I missing? Let me know. Talk to you later. See you at the fights. Peace.